You glance up at the clock, and it reads 11:11, perhaps for the umpteenth time. You think of an old friend for no reason at all, and an hour later their name lights up your phone. A word you only learned yesterday is suddenly everywhere, in a song, on a passing billboard, in a stranger's conversation 2 seats away. And for just a moment, the world seems to lean in close, as if something behind the surface of things had quietly tapped you on the shoulder, as if the universe, vast, silent, and by every measure indifferent to you, had, just for a second, just for you, leaned down and whispered your name. Nearly everyone has felt this, and almost no one talks about it enough because it feels kind of awkward, since it's too strange to wave away as nothing and it's too slippery to hold up as proof of anything. We simply keep it half secret. Many keep it as a private superstition. They're a little embarrassed to admit they half believe. But just for this moment, I want us to take it seriously, to follow the feeling all the way down through 3 questions, each one to turn the ground a little more beneath you. Why does the world so often seem to send us signs? Is anything, anywhere, actually sending them? And if it turns out the whole thing is happening inside your own head, why is that by far the most astonishing answer of all? Let's begin with the fact that you are not the first to feel this, and you are in stranger company than you might think. The feeling has a name. In the last century, the psychiatrist Carl Jung gave it one. He called it synchronicity. He meant those moments when 2 events collide in time and land as deeply, unmistakably meaningful, and yet share no cause anyone can trace between them. Not one thing making the other happen, just 2 threads crossing at exactly the right instant, in exactly the way you needed to see. And here is the part that should give a skeptic pause. Jung did not build this idea alone while being away in some mystical corner. He developed it over years of letters with Wolfgang Pauli. Wolfgang Pauli was one of the founding minds of quantum physics. He was a Nobel laureate, a man who helped write the deepest rules we have for how matter behaves. 2 of the most serious thinkers of the 20th century, one of the mind and one of the atom, sat with this ordinary, uncanny feeling and decided it was worth a lifetime of thought. Jung's own favorite example is a little perfect story. He had a patient whose relentless rationality he simply could not get past, a woman so armored in logic that the work went nowhere. One day she was recounting a dream in which she'd been given a piece of golden jewelry. The jewelry was a scarab beetle, and as she spoke, Jung heard a gentle tapping at the window behind him. He turned, opened it, and caught in his hand the nearest living thing to a golden scarab that part of the world produces, a rose chafer beetle. With its glinting gold-green shell, the rose chafer beetle had been knocking to get in at that exact moment. He turned and handed it to her. "Here," he said, "is your scarab." Her rationalism, he wrote, finally cracked, and the real work could begin. To Jung, that was synchronicity in its purest form, 2 unconnected threads, the inner dream and the outer beetle, crossing at the one instant when the meaning could land. So the feeling is real, and it is old, and it has been taken seriously by people who are nobody's fool, which makes the next question sharper. When the universe seems to send you a sign, what is actually happening? And here the last 100 years of psychology has an answer. It is not a dismissive answer. It is a far more interesting one than "it's all in your head" makes it sound. Let's start with the clock, for instance. We can consider a series of events where you keep catching the 11:11 arrangement. There's a quirk of the mind so reliable that it has a name, the frequency illusion. The moment something enters your awareness, your brain quietly flags it as important and begins showing it to you everywhere. You don't start seeing it more often. You start noticing it more often, and you have no memory of all the times it slid past you unseen before. Learn a rare word, and it seems to leap out of every page that week. Notice 11:11 once, and your mind sets a silent alarm for it, then presents each catch to you like a gift. 2 forces do this together: selective attention, which decides what you see, and confirmation bias, which keeps score to make sure you remember every hit and forget every miss. If we look underneath that, there's something deeper still. Your brain is, before anything else, a pattern-finding machine, the greatest one we know of in the universe. It is so good at its job that it finds patterns even where none exist. There's a name for that, too: apophenia, the pull to see meaningful connections between things that are, in truth, Unrelated. You already know one of its faces. It's why you see a face in the front of a car, a figure in the clouds, the man in the moon, a watching expression in two dots and a line. Your mind's face detector is so eager it fires at random shapes, and rather than see nothing, you see someone. Now hold those two things together, a mind that hunts relentlessly for meaning, and a memory that keeps only the hits, and add the last piece, the one that settles the whole question of coincidence, the mathematics. We badly misjudge how likely the unlikely really is. A mathematician named John Littlewood put a number on it. In an ordinary life, he showed, you should expect a genuine 1-in-a-million event, a miracle, by any honest definition, to happen to you about once a month. Not once in a lifetime, but once a month. It follows from something almost embarrassingly simple. With enough chances, even the wildly improbable becomes not just possible, but scheduled. You are awake for millions of seconds, millions of small events brush past you. Somewhere in that flood, staggering coincidences are not the exception. They are a guarantee. He liked to show it with a game of cards. The odds of being dealt a hand of 13 cards, all of one suit, are so small they look like the hand of fate, a little over 1 in 2 billion, a miracle at your own kitchen table. And yet, once you count up all the people playing card games all over the world, week after week, the numbers turn cold and clear. That impossible hand is dealt to someone, somewhere, about once a year, like clockwork without anything guiding it. There were simply so many hands that the impossible had no choice but to show up on schedule. Every genuine miracle of coincidence in your life runs on the same math. So think again about your friend. The one whose name lit up your phone the moment you thought of them. It felt like a thread pulled taut across the world. But you have thought of that friend 1,000 times when the phone stayed dark, and every one of those times vanished from memory the instant it passed. You kept the single golden coincidence. You threw away the 1,000 that weren't. And out of that one kept thread, the mind, doing exactly what it was built to do, wove a message. I know this sounds like the end of the story. Like the tidy, skeptical ending it ought to be. It's all bias, all statistics, all noise mistaken for a signal. Case closed. But to be honest, it goes beyond that. Stick around and we'll go further from here on out towards what we can call a proper ending. Because that tidy ending overreaches, too. Jung's idea, at its core, cannot be tested. There is no experiment that could ever prove a coincidence carried no hidden meaning, any more than one could prove it did. And that cuts in both directions. It is exactly why science, rightly, sets synchronicity aside. It lies beyond what evidence can touch. But it is also why science cannot slam the door and declare the matter closed. The most anyone can say, honestly, is this: we can explain, in beautiful detail, the machinery that produces the feeling of meaning. We cannot tell you whether, behind that machinery, any meaning was ever truly there. That line, the one where the mind's mechanics end and something else might begin, is where the evidence runs out. Some stand at that line and see God sending signals to them. Some see a universe somehow alive to them. Some see nothing at all but a clever animal telling itself stories in the dark. Numen will not tell you which of them is right. That is not a fact we have. It is a belief each person carries across that line alone, and we won't pretend our reasoning reaches any further than it does. There is one more thing, and it deserves to be said carefully because it's sobering. This meaning-making engine, extraordinary as it is, can tip too far. When it floods, when suddenly everything is a sign, every number a message, every stranger a plant in some vast personal script, doctors recognize it as one of the earliest signs of a mind coming loose from the world, and that tells you something profound. The machinery that finds signs in an ordinary evening is not some strange add-on to the human mind. It sits near the very center of what we are. It is close to the engine of the self. So let's go back to the clock, back to 11:11. Even the fully explained version, the version with no ghost in it, no whisper from the void, nothing but neurons and attention and the cold arithmetic of large numbers, even that version should stop you where you stand, because it means you carry, behind your eyes, an engine that never once stops. An engine that takes a silent, patternless, indifferent universe and turns it, tirelessly, into a story that means something, a story with you at the very center of it. That is not a flaw to be ashamed of. It may be the most human thing about you. The same relentless machine that finds a face in the clouds is the one that found theorems hidden in numbers and symphonies waiting inside noise, and a whole night sky's worth of gods and heroes in a scatter of unrelated stars. The hunger to find meaning is not a bug in the human story. It is very nearly the whole of it. So maybe the universe is not, after all, sending you signs. But sit with the stranger truth underneath that. In all the vast, silent dark, it somehow produced a creature that cannot stop reading them. That looks at a random, indifferent cosmos and insists, against all the odds, on finding itself reflected there. Perhaps the wonder was never really in the clock. Perhaps it was always in the one who looked up and could not help but feel spoken to. That is what this channel is for. If this made the ordinary world feel a little stranger and your own mind a little more astonishing than it did a few minutes ago, subscribe to Numen, and we'll keep finding the awe hidden in everything.